Hello, my name is Max Kistner. My paper was on the Silk Road Darknet Market. Little introduction to this. The growing problem in our society is the lack of privacy. Nowadays, through the use of internet, you can find out information about just about anyone. And back in the 90s, the government, when the internet first came around, the government saw an idea, a way they could utilize the internet in a different way by creating a thing called the dark web, and it was created in the 90s by the US government, and they utilized the Onion router, which allows people to anonymously travel the internet. And it is said that the dark web is to be 400 to 500 times larger than the internet you use today, which is called the surface internet. Now, the government first utilized this Tor as a way of allowing spies they had in other countries to send information back without being intercepted, and one way they made sure that it wouldn't be intercepted or wouldn't be able to read is that they encrypt it with sending information through the Tor browser. You encrypt all the data, and it goes through multiple servers, encrypting it at each server in a different way along the way, and only the people who sent the information will truly know what it means unless you are the receiver. Now, the anonymity of the Tor browser attracted a lot of users, and some of the users were good, some of the users were bad. Now, in this case, I will be talking about the Silk Road, and it is one of the cases that it's not a good use of the privacy that Tor offers. Now, my thesis statement behind this is the purpose of the paper is to review the history of the Silk Road, analyze the exploitations of the technology involved in the Silk Road, and the effect of the Silk Road on our society after it was shut down. So, the creator of the Silk Road was Ross Ulbricht, and he created it in 2011, and 2 years later, it was shut down by the FBI. He was a libertarian with views that questioned the war on drugs, and he started off as a teacher's assistant at one of his old schools, and realized that he didn't want to be a scientist, so he moved into the field of being an entrepreneur and starting startup businesses. One of his first ones was an online bookstore that actually was pretty successful for the time, but he wanted to do something a little bit more, which is where he got into the dark web. He created the website called Silk Road, which many people, just about everyone nowadays, knows about because of the news and media. And his website was used for the trading of illegal products and services through the use of Bitcoin as a payment. Now, what he created was ultimately an eBay for anything illegal, and it didn't start off that way. At first, he wanted the website to be used for victimless crimes, and put a ban on many things such as child pornography, stolen credit cards, firearms, and illegal services such as hits and that. But soon after creating it, he realized he was not able to maintain the integrity of what he once saw, so he had to uplift some of the bans, and one of the major bans that he uplifted was the sale of firearms. And this was due to the fact that the government has been creating a lot of regulations on it, so he felt that since people were being denied their right to firearms, and his views didn't really align with how the government was seeing, so he decided to add that along with what his website offered. So once he realized that he wasn't able to really control it himself, he had hired other people as moderators who never knew the identity of him, but he knew the identity of all his moderators. So it was a way of keeping it anonymous for him and no one really being able to trace the whole website back to him. and it is said that over $1 billion was exchanged through this site, and roughly 70% of the listings on the site were drugs, as a 2013 article said. And now, Ross was investigated by the FBI and was convicted of money laundering, drug trafficking, and computer hacking, and is now serving life in prison. So the process of him getting arrested was a very long and tiresome struggle for the authorities. See, since due to the fact of the anonymity of the Tor browser along with Bitcoin, there is no real way of tracing who he was or who the user. There was no way of tracing the identity of the user, who was Dread Pirate Roberts, which was his alias that he used when using the Silk Road to moderate and do exchanges and so forth. And soon after the FBI investigation started, a lot of his moderators had started getting arrested, and one of the main ones that really shook him was a moderator named Curtis Green, and it scared him so much that he had put a hit on Green's life through the use of his Silk Road website, and then once he through the use of the Silk Road website, and hired a person off there that was actually an undercover cop that faked Green's death and utilized to try and get closer to Dread Pirate Roberts, which no one knew the real identity of him was. Now, the funny thing is, it was not the reason he got caught was not really anything posted on Silk Road. It really wasn't really anything to do with the dark web or Silk Road. Investigators had found out that he had another alias on a forum page, and they had tracked that alias to a Bitcoin forum where he had posted his actual email that had his full name inside the email. And after that, the police or the authorities were able to identify that he was the ringleader of the Silk Road by following him and looking at him and seeing that every time he pulled up his computer, Dread Pirate Roberts would log on to the Silk Road. And eventually they arrested him, confiscated his laptop, searched his house, and they found millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin stored in USB drives on his laptop, so forth. And along with that, they found a journal that he had been keeping records about the whole Silk Road and everything, so it was a very incriminating evidence. And those are all the convictions. He was originally charged with 6 charges of attempted murder, but they all got dropped, and he's still serving a life sentence, so it's not like they would really matter in any way. And another ironic part about this whole investigation is that 2 of the investigators were actually arrested due to some unethical ways of manipulating the Silk Road. So one of them was arrested for selling Ross information on the case, or on the investigation that was fully going on, and another one was arrested for using Curtis Green's account to steal roughly $450,000 worth of Bitcoin from other users across the Silk Road and then transferred it directly to his personal account. And they were both arrested and charged for that. Now, the technology is used in other exploits. So the main technology that was used to create and make Silk Road what it is and what it was the Onion Router, otherwise known as Tor. So Tor was the program created by the government to allow anonymous things to allow you to surf the web anonymously. So it created a safety net for people that wanted to do illegal things and heighten people's willingness to go onto there and buy narcotics and drugs off of this website, or firearms, whatever you want. And so people just felt safer in this environment. Now, one of the major technologies that was an outcome of the Silk Road was Bitcoin. Bitcoin was a theory created by Satoshi Nakamoto, I think his name is, and it was created in 2009, and really never was utilized or seen as anything valuable up until the Silk Road was created, and basically jump-started Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is a blockchain token that is only traceable to an account and not a. You can only trace it to an account number and not an actual identity of a person. So it created another layer of anonymous anonymity for the user or seller, buyer, whatever you were going to do with it. And the blockchain technology behind it is that blockchain really is a bunch of computers that is a decentralized way of validating transactions and keeping records of transactions. So you would have a bunch of computers that validate that the seller has that amount of Bitcoin, and then the buyer has that amount of money, and then they validate that the transaction is okay to do, then send it on forward, and then the transaction is complete, and then written down and added as a block to the blockchain. And another way that the blockchain is utilized is through the creation of new Bitcoin. So every time a new Bitcoin algorithm is solved, it is added as a block to the blockchain, hence the name. And the major exploit of this website was postal services all over the world. So people found it the easiest way to transfer the product from one person to the other was through the use of postal services by not putting a return address on it and so forth, and created another layer of not anonymity, because the buyer has no real way of knowing who the seller is without ever meeting them or having some real name from them. They just know their alias on the website and that they get a package. And now so the effects on our society due to the Silk Road. There's countless websites that have recreated what the Silk Road did and have tried to follow in their footsteps of it and have been successful to an extent, and almost ever since and then it also created a safer purchasing of narcotics. So now people, like I said before, the peer-to-peer transaction is now canceled and not needed. So it's a lot safer for the person, and you get a lot higher quality of product from the buyer. Now, it also made it very hard for law enforcement to crack down on the new drug trade, since they were being shipped through packages, and packages take time. Like, you can't look through every package since there's millions of packages being shipped each day. So it made it harder for law enforcement to crack down on these drug traders. Now, the conclusion is the Silk Road revolutionized the drug trade across the world. It canceled out the peer-to-peer transactions and made a review system for the buyer. So the buyer knows that the seller is a trustworthy person, and they know that the product they're going to get is quality and is what they want, rather than going to the streets and having someone sell them whatever they have, and it might be something that has been diluted with other products to make the dealer more money. Now, like I said before, it gives you a higher quality of drugs and are a lot safer for the user, since you know what you're getting. You know that it is more pure than what you would get on the streets. So it has become very difficult for authorities to capture packages containing drugs and to even charge the receiver, since the anonymity of the Silk Road allows people to use plausible deniability in saying that, oh, this package was never, I didn't order this package, I have no clue where it's from, I didn't know it was for me. So it gives people a way of denying the fact that they actually bought it. So it's a lot harder for law enforcement to actually charge the person. And that is it.